What's up, moviegoers and true believers? Welcome once again to the Real Comics Podcast. I am your host, Voodoo57, and with me, as always, is my good friend and movie cohort, Speedy G33. Speedy G, what's up, man?
You'll float too. What's up, everyone?
You'll float too. I guess you can tell by Speedy G's reaction that today's movie review is going to be It. You and I were fortunate enough to catch this one together, right? You know, it's been a while since we got to, you know, other than I think Baby Driver, that we got to go catch one together on the fly.
Yeah, it was a very good experience watching It.
Is that a play on the word It? Is that what you're trying to do there?
It kind of cracks me up how you're saying, you know, It, the movie, and then it's also named It. And, okay, that was bad.
Yeah,
maybe I'll edit that.
All right. Very punny, very punny. No, we're good. All right, Speedy G. So, you know, I'm glad we got to catch this one together. It's a rare thing, so this is going to be a lot of fun. What do you say we get right into talking about the movie It?
I saw something.
The clown. Yeah, I saw him too. Float too.
What happens?
All right, a little background. Let's do that for you, shall we, before we get going, just in case anybody hasn't seen it yet. I'm going to go ahead and give you some of the information on the film and let you know who's involved in this project. It is a movie about 7 young outcasts from Derry, Maine, about to face their worst nightmare. An ancient, shape-shifting evil emerges from the sewers to prey on the town's children. And banding together through the course of one horrifying summer, the friends must overcome their own personal fears. It is a 1986 Stephen King novel. That was his 18th at the time. And it was directed this time around by Andy Muschietti. Stars Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, a.k.a. It, of course. And give me a quick moment. I do want to list all the children here, and we'll tell you why we're going to go ahead and do this here. All the actors that play the kids. Jaeden Lieberher plays Bill. Jeremy Ray Taylor plays Ben. Sophia Lillis is Beverly, and Finn Wolfhard plays Richie. Great actor's name. Chosen Jacobs plays Mike. Jack Dylan Grazer plays Eddie. And Wyatt Oleff plays Stanley. And not to be outshined or outdone, Nicholas Hamilton, plays Henry Bowers. He's going to be our bully of the movie. So, Speedy G, your initial impressions of the movie It.
Initial impressions. It was a journey back to childhood. These were the kind of movies that I grew up loving. These are old school horror movies that had more going on than just jump scares. You know what I mean? So I came out of this movie just in such a good mood. I had such a good time watching this movie.
I would agree with you 100%. This movie is definitely funnier than I was expecting it to be. And coming into this, I am what you would call an It virgin. I did not read the book. I did not see the television series and Tim Curry's version of the character Pennywise. So I had no clue what was going to happen going into this. My biggest fear that it was going to be like the typical horror movie of today, and that's full of jump scares, something to make you jump completely out of your seat. But no, I had a great time. It was filmed beautifully, and every one of these kids here that I just mentioned plays their character, I think, perfectly. Each one has their own individual identity, and they do an amazing job. It was shot beautifully. I don't know. I don't have enough good things to say about this movie, and you and I have talked about this before. Horror is just not generally our genre, so we're less likely to go. But this one really touched the nerve, and it was great.
Yeah, true horror is not my genre either. I'm not big on the slashers. I'm not big on definitely these new movies, the Japanese influence movies like The Ring or Paranormal, or it's just not my thing because I like a story involved. And that's why I like this, because it was like The Shining. It was like Cujo. It was like Christine, you know, those old movies that gave me a story. And like you said, the kids were just so amazing. I did read the book. And I did watch the miniseries, which I was disappointed in the miniseries. I felt the miniseries didn't capture what I wanted from the book. So, yeah, for me, this was perfect. One of the best adaptations I've seen in a long time. So,
yeah, I would say this definitely takes a big jump up the whole, you know, we start making our best films of the year. I think it's right up there. Definitely entertaining. I mean, heck, Stephen King himself put out a little video that said people should go see it again to see all the little things they miss. And I think I might. What about you? Do you think you might give it a second shot?
I might. I don't tend to go to movies twice. Pretty much nothing. It's not a knock on this movie. I just don't tend to go to movies more than once.
Right.
But yeah, I might. I mean, the kids are just so good. Like I said, it's a coming of age movie. It's a thriller. It's a mystery. It's a summer adventure. There's a lot more going on than just a horror movie. Now, it is a horror movie. Don't get me wrong. Don't expect to go and not get some scares and some jumps. But a lot of it's a lot more than that is what I meant to say. Yeah.
Right. And I totally agree with you. That is what I loved going and finding out about this movie, that it's a thinker's horror movie. It's something that it sets in your brain, and that's why you have nightmares, not because you were shocked to death, because it's something that you saw on the screen that you're just not, you're not going to get out of your mind. And I feel sorry for the people who are afraid of clowns in general. This just adds a whole other level of fright. And let me tell you, it could almost be considered a comedy. I mean, I'm not sure where it came from, but it was great. It was good fun. And you and I, we've been talking about for the past couple of days. We can't say enough about the performances and the way everything has worked out in this movie.
Well, it's interesting that you say comedy, because it's a comedy because it involves kids, and kids would behave that way. Kids would be joking all the time. So that's part of why it's a comedy. Even though it's not. It's
got a great feel to it. That Goonies / maybe Stand By Me kind of feel to it. Does that mean you should take your youngest kids to go see this? No, not by any means. But there's that feel there. In my recommendation, if you've seen Stranger Things, definitely on par with that as well. I think the acts, Act 1, 2, and 3 play out perfectly. And you're left basically wanting more. You're wanting to know more. You're left with a good feeling when you leave the theater, considering you just went to a horror film.
Yeah, without a doubt. Because that's how good the children are. They definitely make you care about them. Now, it's interesting. Could it be a generational thing? Because my daughter went with us, and she's freshman high school age. To her, she didn't quite connect as well as we did. And I think it's just a generation, she's grown up with the paranormals of the world, and she's not interested in caring about these other kids per se the way we are, because we put ourselves in the kids' position. We think about it like they are our kids. So we have these fears for the kids. So I don't know, maybe it's more intense for us old people than it is for the younger generation. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I mean, no offense to our younger generation or anybody who might be listening on either iTunes or Podomatic or even on YouTube, but it's definitely one of those things where as a whole, I think that our society is desensitized in a different way. Those things that get to you and I, that cause nightmares and things like that, are a lot different than what kids of today might be scared of. That's why they need that jump scare. You know what I mean? And I took my daughter. Here's a quick example. I took my daughter to go see Paranormal Activity when it first came out, the original, the first one. And I fell asleep. I admit I was tired, but that kind of shocking horror I'm not scared by it. I'm not shocked by it. I don't know if it's my side hobby of watching ghost shows or what, but I wasn't affected by it. So maybe that table is turning in some sense. You know what I mean?
I hope so, because this is what horror needs. And if you look at the successful movies that have come out this last year, Get Out, there's a very important story along with Get Out. It's not just a horror movie. And Split was another one that was a thriller / horror thing. There's more going on to these two movies than just straight horror. Right. And that's why I think all three of these films have done well and made a lot of money, because it's storytelling as well as scaring you.
Right. Nope. I think you hit the nail right on the head. The key word is storytelling, man. It's not just blood and gore, and it's not just something that makes you, jump out of your seat. I completely and totally agree with you. I think we can both recommend this film. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely check it out in a packed theater. Try to get there now before the theater starts thinning out unless people are going, because it's such a shared experience. Everyone shares that, like, oh, and then the get laugh, and then the
Right.
funny moments of the whole crowd laughing. You want to see this with a lot of people. It's a lot
You know what?
more fun.
That is a great point. I think our theater was practically empty, save for maybe 10 at the most.
Yeah,
Other
'cause we hit
people.
that matinee. Sometimes
Yeah,
it'll happen.
and though the laughs hit, it was still kind of stale and quiet. So yeah, if you can see it in a packed house in the evening, definitely go see this one in the theater. I definitely recommend you see it in the theater, and I definitely recommend you see it soon. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a shared experience. One of those movies that you want to share with people. Some movies are like that. Other movies you want to concentrate in. You don't want to hear people. This is one.
You know what? I think it's a great date night movie, man. Talk about something to not only talk about, but to share in an intimate way, whether you're balled up in the other person's lap or you just, whatever. I think that's definitely, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that about a horror movie, but definitely go check it out. Definitely.
Icebreakers. Oh, well, I always believe that a horror movie is the best thing to do when you're on first date.
Talk about shock value. That's a shock value in itself, if you ask me. Anyway, all right. I think we can put the non-spoiler portion of this to bed. What do you say, Speedy G?
I think so. Yeah, check this out. You'll be really happy you did.
We definitely recommend that you go see this one. But for right now, for those people who have already seen it and want to talk about it further and want to hear our thoughts on the details of it, we're going to get into spoilers starting right now. Okay, we're about to get into spoilers, and just a quick reminder, so you've been warned. We're going to get heavy and deep into some of the things we liked about it. At the end of this, I'm going to throw a little yes or no word game to my good friend here, Speedy G, to see what he thinks, and we're going to be curious about your thoughts. So no matter how you're listening to us, whether you're listening or watching to us, let us know what you think your thoughts on some of these things might be. So to start it all off, Speedy G, I want to tell you that, so compared to the book, and I'm curious on your thoughts of this, the book had this thing set, originally the children's portion of this film was set in the 1950s. And then, later on, I guess it's in later chapters, which we're going to find out later also ourselves, it was set in the 80s. How do you feel about where it was staged and set to start the film?
I'm okay with the change. I think the 80s is a good place to start. It's a good reference point for a lot of us watching the movie because, as you said, the book came out in the 80s. So a lot of us reading it were 80s kids. So we know the 80s, and so that's the audience they're going after. I don't think you can go too much farther than that into the future. I think technology would make this movie a little tougher. It still has to be simple. And in a small town like Derry, it still was kind of simple in the 80s. You know what I mean?
Right. Something tells me, though, because of the way that this film left us, and we'll go ahead and talk about that right now, that this film left us with clearly knowing that there is a part 2 that's going to be coming. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you ask me, I think it sets up perfectly for present day. It's going to
30 years.
30 years roughly. So it sets up for present day, and they're going to have to, in a very good way, if they keep true to the original film that we just saw and we love so much, they're going to have to find a way around those little things like technology, and they're going to have to keep that town still simple. I guarantee you they're going to come to that place and find that it's still the town that they left behind in some form or fashion.
And that's important. They have to keep the town simple, because if the town, like say it's a town that's been gentrified and like has a cafe with the Wi-Fi and everything, it's harder to keep the creepiness that you need to keep, because the town itself is creepy. Stephen King described it as he wanted to write a story about the entire town being a haunted house.
Right.
That was his goal. So if you bring in all kinds of modern stuff, the Starbucks and everything, it kind of loses a little bit of that, I think.
No, I totally agree with you. And you brought up something that I want to transition into the next thing we're going to talk about here. So I didn't know, I have a little fun fact here that I have several that I'm going to bring up and get your take on. So there's the opening scene with little Georgie. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you can notice Pennywise / it drooling Well, that was an actual thing. The character, Skarsgård, would actually drool because of the prosthetics and having to keep his face in that position. They liked it so much, they left it in. What do you think about, and they even, in some points, they added some extra slime so it would come off as heavy and thicker and it wouldn't disappear and be seen on film. What do you think about that as part of being one of the creepiest things they've left in the film?
I like it. It's cool. It's creepy, and plus it's practical. You know what I mean? It's not a digital effect. You said they enhanced it, but it's basically a practical effect. That was the result of him holding his mouth that way and possibly him salivating over the fact that he's about to eat somebody, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked it.
That's pretty good. Hey,
you know what's funny, real quick, because you mentioned the beginning. I had an experience with the beginning of this film where he's going, down to the cellar, that whole part with the cellar. And at that moment, I'm sitting in a chair, and all I can think in my mind is, why the hell did I come to this movie? Right. I'm not going to be able to handle this movie because I don't really do horror very well. And for a moment there, I was regretting my choice of coming to this movie. It's like, if the whole thing's going to make me feel like this, I'm not going to make it.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of the reason that, we don't go to these things, but this was purely enjoyable. Yeah. And it's a mental game that I really, really, really enjoyed. You were talking about practical effects. So one other thing here in doing my little research for this project, Skarsgård also has a lazy eye. There are a couple of moments in the movie where it looks like he's looking the wrong way. And I thought, well, that's because there's been a tussle, or he's, as a creature, he's not looking straight ahead. But it was something they used to their advantage. And it's something that he can do on command, apparently, is relax the muscle in his eye and kind of make it wander off and look the other direction. So I thought that was kind of creepy as well. They practical stuff in this movie thrived for sure. Mr.
Stud Good Looking isn't so perfect after all, man. No. He's a little bit creepy.
No, I think it's his brothers. I think that girls look more towards, but still, he's come off.
I'm sure he doesn't spend a lot of evenings alone himself.
I don't think so either. Next thing I kind of just wanted to throw out there is there a moment in the movie that you just thought, wow, this is so. What gave you that so good moment, that feel?
Hit you right in the field. From a non-horror point of view, when she sees his New Kids on the Block poster and they share that little moment, like she knows and he knows. He doesn't tell everyone, and he kind of acknowledges and owns it, like, yeah, so what? I am, and I don't care. And she's like, cool on you. I thought that was like a cool little moment. There's a lot of little moments with Ben. Ben was my favorite character for sure.
Yes, Ben. That's Ben and Beverly you're talking about. Ben is the short, pudgy kind of guy his outsider is different because he just kind of stays away from everybody and spends his time in the library.
Was also the new kid. He just moved
the new
there,
kid.
Remember?
Yep.
So that makes him outsider also. And from a horror point of view, probably the opening, because I didn't know what to expect, what kind of Pennywise we were going to get. So that whole where he's talking to Georgie in the
in the sewer drain
and looking up at him, that set the stage for everything to follow. So those would probably be the two big moments for me.
Oh, I would agree with you there. That's definitely true. I think the ones though that impacted me most, I'll give you two as well. The one for simplest and what makes this kind of a fun, like, summertime romp. And I'm going to go out. So they decide to go jump in a quarry lake. Okay. And here you have several boys surrounded by one girl. And there's that moment where they're caught, like, just staring at her in awe. You're sunning on the rocks. And there's that innocent moment. I could remember being that age and being, myself, like, being infatuated with a particular girl at school or having a crush. But they were all just like, I can't believe this girl is sitting here on the rocks next to all of us in our underwear, sunning.
Oh, and especially considering they were the losers club. It's not like there was a lot of girls that talked to them anyway. So
yeah, these were not the most popular kids in school, that's for sure. So that was a good moment. And then as far as kind of my favorite moment in the scene actually is probably one that I can also throw some background on. It's going to go to my next fun fact. There's a moment where Pennywise in the creepy house is coming out of a refrigerator, but he's twisted up. So he's got to basically pop lock himself back into a normal shape. And that to me was also fun and exciting to watch how terrified the kids were to see him coming out of the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And here's why that moment was so good. This is another fun fact I'm going to throw at you. It's one of the first scenes they shot on set with the kids and Pennywise face to face, and none of them had seen what Pennywise looked like. So he came out of that refrigerator for the first time. So the shock in their face and their reactions is all pure and genuine fear.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wonder how much they did to the kids like that to get some true, genuine reactions out of them. Like how much, like not tell them what they were going to do to them to get some.
Yeah, I guess there were a lot of moments in between. I guess practical jokes, or they didn't exactly specify that he may be around the corner. They just said that you're going to encounter him at some point, and they wouldn't tell them exactly when or how, or they wouldn't tell them when a door was going to shut. So I thought that was cool. I thought that was pretty smart on their part.
That is awesome. That is smart directing. But I don't want that to take away from their performances, because these little kids, no, they had so many wonderful performances. They're all unique. They all had a part to play, and they played it. Some of them have tons of dialogue that they have to deal with, and they do it in a way that doesn't feel boring. It doesn't sound like just exposition. And they're unique. Like I said, they could blend and just become like, okay, remember the other kids? You don't think of it that way. You think of each kid.
Right. And
you have a happy moment or a favorite moment with each kid.
That's exactly right. I mean, you could even point out, well, like Finn Wolfhard, excuse me, compared to the rest of the cast, he has the most experience because he's actually in the TV show Stranger Things on Netflix. So he's used to dealing with this, except his character is the exact opposite of what he plays in Stranger Things. So I know I think you were telling me there was some concern about how he might come off as this character.
Because you kind of, he probably had a little more pressure on the other guys because there was film to look at.
Right.
But everyone else is like, well, I guess they'll be good. Nobody really knows, you know what I mean? But with him, people could start making comparisons, like saying, well, we don't want him to be like he is on Stranger Things. He needs to be like this. He needs to be more like this. You think he can do it? Does he have the chops, or is Stranger Things just a manifestation of his personality and they're just filming him being him? You don't really know that, but now it's obvious that he's one or the other. I don't know, or maybe he's neither, and he's that good of an actor. It's hard to tell.
No, I think I think this kid's going to be probably one of those kids, if he can stay out of trouble like most of them do at a young age.
Yeah.
I think we'll be talking about him for a little while. And with a name like Finn Wolfhard, I mean, sounds like something off of Game of Thrones. I don't know what.
He had a mouth on him, though. He definitely was motor mouth, that's for sure.
Well, that's what made the movie fun, I can tell you that much. Hey, did you know there were 3 kids, and they didn't say who in several articles, and I don't want to know who, that didn't know how to ride a bike. So the way that they met up for the first time is they said, all right, we're all going to get together, whether you know or not, and learn how to ride a bike and show you where we want you to go. And, just so and then that gave them time to also get to know each other as well. So
goddamn,
I thought that was pretty cool too. Exactly right. That's exactly what I said. I said, freaking video game kids of today don't know how to ride a bike. Get your butts outside and ride a bike, people.
The bikes are great. And there's a cool little moment. Stan always put his kickstand up. It's that a little tiny thing that defines his personality, that is there for us to see every time they roll up on their bikes. Everyone's just tossing their bikes wherever, just jumping off, leaving the whole yard full of bikes. And there's Stan putting the kickstand.
He wanted to make sure they didn't get all scratched up. The other kids are just all bam. But I have to admit, as a kid, I was not only into bikes, but I was a track racer here locally. And I remember I used to dump my bike all over the place, and it was a very expensive racing bike. And my parents used to give me so much hell for that. Extra charge when they caught me dropping that bike on the ground. That's for sure. Oh man. Speedy G, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that did scare you, some of the fear factor things that did actually kind of make you sit back and go, man, oh my goodness. And compare that to what and I know you've told me this, there's some things that may have been originally written in the script that they just could not put in this film. Yeah. And the reason I bring that up is because I was thinking back to the house, the creepy house on the corner. Mm-hmm. Okay. Believe it or not, the inside of that house is an actual house. And all they did was add spider webs and vines and things to that. And the people who owned it let them do whatever they want. So the creepy house is probably one of my favorite parts because it was a little more scarier, doors shutting behind you and things happening. What was, one of the more...
Where I was the most scared was the stuff that I would say you would get in Nightmare on Elm Street, where you don't know whether it's real or Pennywise. So the things involving Bev's dad, the things dealing with Henry, you know what I mean? Some of those kind of creepy things are what really got to be, like I said, the thing going into the house was almost scarier than once they got in the house.
Right.
Like the anticipation of like, oh shit, what are they going to find? Going down into the basement, walking through the dark house and going into the basement. Not to say that Pennywise wasn't scary when he appeared, but I'm thinking Nightmare on Elm Street, because the same way, once you saw Freddy, you almost kind of had like okay, you weren't as scared until he like started slashing people. The same kind of thing with Pennywise. It's more that anticipation of like, oh shit, don't go down those stairs. Don't go down those stairs. Ah, shit, you went down those stairs. So those were the things that scared me the most. And you definitely the stuff with Bev. And it is scarier in the book. If you want to compare to the book, they do really kind of make it clear to you what's going on with Bev's dad and her and some of the horrible things that he's doing to her. And yeah, that's some scary stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad we don't have that on screen. As far as one of my favorite horror movies, I think we definitely talked about this, and I've been talking about it ever since. It's the moment they're going through slides of the town of Derry, and Pennywise takes over the slide projector inside the garage with the door shut, and he morphs a photo image of Bill, his dad, Georgie, and his mom into an image of himself with his hair sweeping out. And then at the last second, he kind of pops out of there. That was probably the one part that I literally said, oh shit. That was my oh shit moment. I was like, whoa, that set me back, but I loved it. That was perfect.
Yeah, that was good stuff. But there's a funny thing. That's where I go into that generational thing. Cause then when he comes out of the wall after them, I was still like in a frightened stage. The kid next to me, my daughter, was like, that's kind of dumb. See, because to her it didn't register that way, because it was, I guess I'm able to get lost in the fantasy, and they're kind of from a generation that doesn't look real. You understand what I mean? Where I don't know, I guess I'm willing to suspend belief and go along with the ride. I'm like, I'm in this ride, whatever it is, how crazy it seems or ridiculous or whatever, I'm in this ride. And now that I'm in this ride, I'm riding it all the way through.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that. And it's funny. It's funny she says that. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's like I said, it's a thinker's movie. Just because what you're seeing on screen is happening, you're still left with, why is it happening? How is it happening? Why is this possible? And why is that possible? And I know there were some things left out from the book, which has me tempted to read the book, but I'm not going to, because I know it leads right into possibly things from the sequel, which we were left clearly knowing that there's going to be one.
That's why I'm not talking too much about things in the book, because I can talk a little more, like you're saying, the cerebral and what its purpose was, what he was doing to these kids, why he did what he did, why did he seem to torture them is basically what he was doing. Because you're like, why doesn't he just chomp them and eat them? Why is he toying with them? Why is he torturing them? There's a reason. And to get into that a little more, then you have to get into what he is, who he is, and not knowing how they're going to tackle part 2. I don't want to, because I don't know how they're going to do it. And I can mistakenly spoil something for somebody and for you. So I'll just keep it to myself on what could be or couldn't be, stuff like that. That's a complicated way of saying,
I appreciate you, Speedy G, for doing that. And anybody listening, I'm sure, does too, in case they don't know what could not be coming.
I thought it was funny you didn't realize that there was probably going to be a second chapter. You didn't even realize.
I had no clue. I thought it was one movie.
Go read the book now, and I go, well, you kind of can't because. And you go, well, I'm just going to read the first chapter. I go, it's really kind of not that way. You could spoil yourself and not realize it. It's one book,
right?
It's not multiple books like some other things. So I would just stay away from it if I were you, unless you want to know. I mean, if you're like me, I don't care because to me they were two different experiences.
No, and if for anybody who doesn't know now, I did not touch a single Harry Potter book until all the movies were done because I knew the books would be better than the movie, and I didn't want any of that extra knowledge going in, so that when I finally read them, it was like the extras on a DVD. I knew all the little detail, finite things that I know you can't always pack into a 2-hour and 20-minute film. You can't always shove it all in there. And this is character building.
Of what a book to think of a book, but I'm going to always read first because that's how I am. But for someone else, think of the book as a director's cut because you're going to get all that other stuff that they cut out because it just didn't fit to keep the movie flowing. But you're going to get all those details when a movie's done right. When it's adapted right, you're going to feel like you're reading about those characters you watched on screen with bonus scenes. That's a good adaptation of a book. Because you're never going to be able to complete. Like I said, Lord of the Rings to me, I think is one of the best adaptations we've ever seen. And there's a lot cut out. And there's a lot of people that still complain about Lord of the Rings because of stuff that was cut out. Come on.
You can't complain about all that stuff. You know what I mean? You just can't.
You watch all those movies. What is it, like 10 hours to watch all three? If you watch the extended
10 hours if you watch the original trilogy. We're not talking about the Hobbit movies. We're talking about the original first three Lord of the Rings movies. I want to make that clear.
Don't speak about those. We don't speak of the Hobbit movie.
we don't speak of the George Lucas Hobbit trilogy.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that jokingly. I know.
Yeah, see, that's it. Don't do prequels. There it is, right there.
Yeah.
Do not do prequels. Prequels fall apart for everybody.
Well, at least if you're going to do them. Exactly. So, any last thoughts before we get into this quick little game I want to play with you on, our spoiler version of the movie of It?
I don't think we talked enough about some of the other guys. Oh, I know. I do want to talk about Mike.
Okay.
Who's played by Chosen. I don't know Chosen's last name.
Jacobs.
He feels like there wasn't enough time given to him. He's underdeveloped. If there's one complaint I have about this movie is that he was shortchanged and you don't get to really know him. Mm-hmm. And part of that is a problem that comes from a book. That Mike isn't part of the group for the longest time. He's a homeschooled kid. He lives in a different area of town. He's obviously African-American. The original film is set in a time where we weren't as integrated. And because of that, he has less screen time. So you feel like you don't really know him when he gets to the movie. And they didn't do a bad job, but they didn't do a great job. And I think that would be one of my only minor complaints about this film is I feel he was left out.
Yeah, I guess I could see where that would fit when you say that out loud. I mean, I didn't feel that necessarily in the movie, again, because I didn't know. But when you say it, you can see that because he has, maybe one or two minor parts before all of a sudden they run into each other and he's with the group.
And he's playing a major role in the group. And you're supposed to feel like he's part of the crew. And he kind of is, but he kind of isn't. You know what I mean? Right.
He's still technically, even though it's a group of losers, on the outside. And yeah, I think you're right there, buddy. That's for sure. I don't think I have anything else necessarily to add. So I want to play this little yes or no game with you. So here's how it's going to go. I actually have found an article with a list done by the actors, all but Eddie's opinion. Of who they think.
I liked Eddie.
But there's word out there. But so they all were asked this question: who do you think should play the adult version of you? So each one of the child actors answered this question. And so rather than try to, just open your mind and then just tell me if you think you can see it, just give me a quick yes or no.
Wow. Real simple. Okay, because I am horrible at fan casting.
I know you are, but but think about, some of them are a little blatant, so it'll be obvious.
Okay.
But some of them I kind of go, give it a minute to soak in, and then we'll discuss whether or not you think these can work. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
So first for the character of Bill. All right. The adult version, the kid that played him, Jaeden, he says he thinks Christian Bale should play his part.
I'm going to say no.
Yep, I agree. I would say that's a no.
Christian Bale's a little too screw loose for me. And Bill, Bill is the moral center of this group. He's the leader. He's the one that always drives them, keeps them together. He's the glue. He's all of that. And I don't see Christian Bale being that guy. I just no.
Okay, so that's 2 no's. All right, you ready? So for Ben, now, according to Ben, his character may change some, so you might have a better insight to that. He'd like to see Chris Pratt play his character.
I could go with that. Yeah, I mean, tone the comedy down a touch. We can't go full on like Chris Pratt comedy, but I could go with that.
He's not going to be comedic, but apparently the character makes some changes. I don't want to get into it because I don't know, and I don't want to ask, and I don't want you to tell me that between
your typical fat kid doesn't stay fat. Basically.
Exactly. So that's what he was hoping. All right, so let's get to Richie the Smart Mouth. He says Bill Hader should take his place.
Wow. Yeah, okay. I'll go with that.
Yeah, that's two yeses. That's 2 yeses. I totally agree. I could totally see it. And by the way, keep in mind when I'm reading this, they had pictures side by side. So I thought that was interesting. And they do have a very similar look. All right. Okay, so let's go on to Mike. That's going to be Chosen Jacobs. This one's going to be, I'll tell you what he said, and then I'll give you what I think. He said Chadwick Boseman should play his character.
Oh, man. Chadwick Boseman is so serious. Such a serious guy. I'm trying to think. Maybe. I have to give that a maybe. I don't know.
See, I was maybe there too. So, now
Mike definitely plays a bigger role going forward.
Right.
I don't want to get into too much because I would spoil for you, but he does play a bigger role. Right. And it is going to take somebody who has some acting ability. It's not going to be a jokey role. So Boseman fits in that sense. Just that Boseman is so serious when you watch all of Boseman. I'm thinking, I've seen Jack Robinson. I've seen the one about James Brown. What is it? I don't know. I don't know on that.
See, and that's why I give it a maybe. But let me tell you what I did see online somebody suggest, and I'm more inclined to say yes to that one. And that is Jordan Peele from Key and Peele.
No. But see, that's because you don't know. That's because you don't know what's going on. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was a better fit.
Maybe. I don't know. No. I'm going to say no to that.
Okay. Well, then let's move on.
I would lean more towards Boseman.
Okay, gotcha.
Make a choice between those two.
That makes sense. You know a little more than I do. Okay, let's get to Stanley. And this one is extremely popular on the internet, by the way. And that is, so Stanley's the Jewish kid. I like to call him a.k.a. Mini Star-Lord because he did play young Star-Lord
in the original Guardians.
No, in the original Guardians of the Galaxy. No. Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
That could work. Yeah, Levitt can do anything. So yeah. Would Levitt do that role? I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I don't think he would do the role, but I think he'd be a good fit if he did decide to. I think he'd be pretty good.
Stan is not as major of a role.
Right.
If you're going to balance who the more important roles are and characters are.
All right. So the kid who plays Eddie unfortunately wasn't there, but the internet came with their own on this one, and this one kind of made me chuckle. They think Fred Savage should play Eddie.
Oh, that's messed up. No. No. Maybe someone like Steve Carell.
Oh, hey, that's a good one.
Something like that.
That's a good one. Well, because Eddie in the movie is kind of, well, he doesn't know it, but he's being he seems to be a hypochondriac because that's the way he's been raised. in the movie. And so you come to find out that just maybe he isn't. And it's his mom who has an issue and has been feeding him these things to protect him.
Fat suit.
Exactly.
Have you seen the actress who plays her?
No, I have not.
That's all fake. She's not that
Is it?
big.
I thought it might be, but I couldn't quite tell. So
she's not
kudos to the movie staff. Anyway, so that's it for who should play them later on. I thought that was just a pretty fun thing.
Play Henry. They didn't ask Henry?
You know what? They didn't. But I did see what is his name? I did see him out there. Dang it. And I wish I would have been prepared for this. See, you know this more than I do, and it's the reason I didn't research it. I didn't want to find out something I wasn't supposed to know. It was the actor who played Zod in Man of Steel.
I could go with that.
I think his name is Michael Shanahan.
Yeah, I could go with that.
And they do look very similar.
Plus, they both can play fucking scary. Yeah, I need someone to play. I mean, that dude is insane. Yeah, he did insane really well. You know.
Yeah, it's Michael Shannon, and I could see that. The kids do side by side, which I saw on the internet. They do very much have a very similar look to themselves. And that's
I want the look, but I also want to make sure they capture the spirit. And it's going to be hard because people say it all the time that watch the miniseries. The second half is the boring half.
Right.
It's not as magical. And so your challenge to this movie maker this next time around is to make us care about this second half. The book did, but the miniseries didn't, because let's be honest, it's not as fun. And like you said, the innocence and the coming of age and the fear of little kids dealing with clowns, you know, these are grown-ups. And when we're dealing with grown-ups now, it's a whole different kind of horror movie, you know?
No, well said, honestly. So I almost forgot Beverly.
Ooh,
the girl who plays Beverly. Let's do her real quick. She says that she thinks Jessica Chastain should play her character.
Yeah, that'd work, because Jessica Chastain can play anything.
I say maybe, but I actually, again, if we're going by look and somebody who could play a very strong role, believe it or not, the internet is thinking Amy Adams.
Amy Adams looks like her.
Oh my God, does she look like her?
Amy Adams really looks like her, so I could see them.
And she can act. And your girl can act.
She can act.
I lean more.
I think Chastain would be better personally, but that's just a personal preference. But yeah, and that is a role that would get an Amy Adams or somebody like that to play if they really wanted. If they wanted to do it, there is enough there to make it interesting. I think that there might even actually be a fight for that one. I mean, you're talking about a girl who's been through a lot fighting back. Yeah. And that's definitely a strong theme nowadays. Some actors don't want to be part of an ensemble like that. They don't want to have to share that kind of spotlight. Plus, I'm sure the money's a little less in a situation like that.
Yeah.
So some actors just don't want to do it. So when you're talking about a Jessica Chastain and an Amy Adams, they're looking for Oscar vehicles a lot of times. And both of them are already locked up with a, quote, franchise now. I mean, you have Adams with Justice League, the DCEU, and now you have Chastain joining the X-Men universe.
Right.
So they may not be willing to do another kind of this type of film. So another redhead I'm going to throw out there who's pretty good is I cannot remember her name right now.
Yeah, you just
Ron Howard's daughter.
Oh, yeah. From Jurassic World, correct?
So she's a possibility too. Yeah. Not as good as the first two, but still a possibility. But they might go with unknowns. I think they're going to surprise us and go with a lot more unknowns than you think.
No, I know. I agree that they are. I thought this was just a fun game. These are what the kids would like. They're heroes, the people that they look up to take. You know what I mean? Like I said, the Christian Bale. That was the furthest from my mind as far as Bill goes. We need somebody more simply. Actually, somebody said online, Tobey Maguire
watches American Psycho.
Right. Somebody said somebody more like along the lines of a Tobey Maguire or somebody simple. And I thought Tobey Maguire, when they put him side by side, again, they have the look. We know Tobey Maguire can act, especially
the actor who plays him in the TV show Grown Up plays Bill is I can't remember the actor's name, but he plays John Boy in the Waltons.
Oh, really?
That is the actor who plays the grown-up Bill.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
Kind of give you a frame reference of what a grown-up Bill might be like.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Simple and homely still, you know, a dedicated father, perhaps, whatever, something like that. Something straightforward. Nothing too crazy. All right, cool. Well, that kind of wraps up our little fire round and discussion of it. Fire. Hey, so before we float away, any final thoughts or anything else you want to say?
I feel like a turd.
Wow. I didn't say floater. Good God. All right, Speedy G. Something tells me it's time to end this one right about here, Mr. Hanky. Hey, a quick note I do want to throw out there. Speedy G and I are putting something special together for October. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That's right. We want to celebrate Halloween in fashion. Speedy G, how can they get a hold of you if they want to talk to you on the old interweb?
Oh, yes. Everyone wants to talk to me. No, you guys get a hold of me at Real Comics. So REELCOMICS on the Twitters.
And if you want to get a hold of me, you can reach me at voodoo_57. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this week's podcast and review of It. Speedy G, take it easy.
Yep. Go watch it.
Definitely go out there and catch it. And before we let you go, as we always say here on the show, always be your own hero. Take care, everybody.